Magandang araw mga ka-agri. Ako nga po pala si Ginilyn Gilargo. And so for today, I'm gonna report about production of swine by Chaim L. Maxwell R. Harper and in June 20, 2005. So I'm gonna report about production of swine. So, production of swine. While the livestock industry's tendency toward larger farms continues, there are still ways to make money farming hogs on a part-time basis. In the swine sector, technological advancements and vertical integration have resulted in fewer farms producing record volumes of pork. Approximately 8,000 swine growers operate in the Northeast, selling nearly 1.3 million pigs worth more than $500 million each year. So, kabalo man tingali tanong nga, swine for now is kanang mahal. Mahal ang kuan presyo sa ato ang mga baboy karon. So, dako og kung baga profitable item ang swine karong panahon na. So in doing swine production, we have to consider the marketing process. So before starting a swine production business, you should think about what marketing plant you want to use. Either feeder pigs and slaughter hogs from small scale or part-time farms can be sold in variety of ways. So it includes feeder pigs are sold to finishing pig producers, then auction of livestock, then sales of graded feeding pigs, then sales of slaughtered hogs to packer buying stations, then sales to big packaging plants on a direct basis, then small-scale packer and processor, then direct-to-consumer specialty sales. So, before we start producing a swine or before we enter a swine production, we must consider or we must have a plan on how are we going to market our product. So these are the ways of how are you going to market the swine or our swine. So feeder pig marketing. So feeder pig farmers have access to all of these marketing opportunities. Marketing directly to pig finishers is one of the most common options. Both sides benefit from this strategy. So for kani nga strategy maka-benefit ni siya both sides. So first, both of the buyer and the seller are aware of the price and delivery terms ahead of time. So the direct sale alternative, on the other hand, decreases an animal stress and disease risk. Third, commission associated with a livestock auction are eliminated with a direct to finisher deal. Another popular method of selling feeder pigs is through a livestock auction, graded sale, or buying station. Before you use these markets, you should be aware of the most ideal weights and lot sizes. So before you see these markets, dapat namoy ka na kung baga mag-set mo og if i-market nimo ni siya nga time or mag-set ni kani siya nga way of marketing, mag-set ka pila may timbang nimo pili timbang sa imong baboy para imo na siyang ibaligya. Then imo pong plan diri nga unsa ka dako nga yuta or unsa ka dako nga building ang imong kinahanglan for this production or for this marketing procedure or way. Then marketing for slaughter hogs. So slaughter hogs are commonly sold through buying stations or directly to a big packer. Before the deal is finalized, producers are given price quote in both circumstances. Small packers and processors are another industry that slaughter hog producers can get into. They frequently pay a good price, but their factory capacity and client base limit the amount of pigs they can purchase. Another alternative for selling slaughter hogs is to go to an auction barn because of its proximity and convenience. Producers frequently use this market. The downside of marketing through an auction barn is that producers are at the whim of the local market supply and demand for hogs on that particular day. So, kumbaga, mo siya, kani nga way is, siya tabo-tabo, kumbaga, marketing for slaughter hogs. Mura siya tabo-tabo or, inana, buying stations. So, mura siya tabo-tabo, kumbaga. On any one day, prices may be far below or far above the national average of the producer must accept the highest bid price. Regardless of the ultimated bid amount, auction barn charge a commission for slaughterhouse producers. Specialty markets are another option. Consumers can buy directly from a producers in a popular form of direct sale. So the customer then hires a small packer to chop and package the meat according to his or her specifications. So in conclusion, selecting a market necessitates research. So ay dapat when you're going to have or to select a market, dapat na may mga bases nga unsa may way or unsa man nga way nga market ang imong gi-use or unsa ba na nga way para if ever na mag-start na ka og business or kabalo ka unsaon pagtuyok sa imong business, dili ka diretso ma-bankrupt. So dapat na research. Mag-research sa kadaan unsa ni siya nga type nga market mong gigamit or imong possible nga gamiton sa imong business pohon. So you must account for differences in price received, shipping expenditures, shrink losses, selling costs, and convenience when comparing market options. When all marketing costs are taken into account, a market 50 miles away that provides a higher price may actually earn less net revenue than selling locally at a lower price. So you must be aware of your options and keep up with price trends and market preferences. So, sama sa kong gigon kaganina, kailangan mag-research ka about sa imong about sa mga types sa markets o way of marketing the product so that kanang dili ka ma-behind or dali ma-bankrupt kay ang imong gigamit nga market is your preference kanang for lifetime. So, 3 enterprises and their characteristics. So, we have 3 enterprises and their characteristics. This is farrow to finish, farrow to feeder, and feeder to finish are the 3 types of swine producing enterprises. There is no single blueprint for these systems. The most crucial aspect of establishing the optimal production system for you is designing a system that will complement your resource and lifestyle. So you must first analyze the following factors to determine which business will perform best in your situation. So, imong mga factors nga imong i-consider when you are building or a swine production or when you are going to enter business in swine production. So, you need to consider the capital. Syempre, kailangan na itong kwarta when you are going to make a business. Then, labor and land resources available. And management and marketing skills are required. Manure management includes social and environmental implications. Then, farrow to finish. Breeding and farrowing sows, as well as feeding the progeny until they reach a market weight of roughly 280 pounds, are all part of a farrow to finish operation. The complete production cycle lasts about 10 months. with 4 months for breeding and gestation and 6 months for raising the litter to market weight. So, kumbaga, ang imong saw, gakinahanglan siya og 10 months tanan dala sa iyang pagburos. So from breeding up unto 4 months sa pagburos, then 6 months sa pagdako sa imuhang bactin, then produce na dayon. So, farrow to finish has the most long-term commercial potential and versatility of the three techniques. This approach also necessitates the biggest investment in both capital and labor, as well as a long-term commitment to the swine industry. When farrowings are arranged to avoid peak harvest times, a modest number of sows can fit perfectly into a crop operation. Most new farrow-to-finish systems are intended to store gestation sows in pens rather than in crates, which may increase the capital required for sow housing. So, ginastore ang mga gestating sows sa pens rather than crates. So, mas dako ang iyahang ikinahanglan nga capital for its housing. So, and syempre, sa labor na pod, apil lang labor dira. Farrow to feeder. Breeding and farrowing sows, then selling the piglets to finishing operations when they weigh 30 to 60 pounds is when a farrow to feeder operation entails. This method reduces the demand for buildings, operational capital, and the amount of feed and manure handled when compared to a farrow to finish operation. It also lays solid platform for growing into a farrow to finish operation or increasing the number of sows. The most significant disadvantage of this system is that producers, particularly those with small herds, are subject to the whims of fluctuating feeder pig market. To boost the number of pigs available during seasons of high demand, this may necessitate farrowing sows in groups. So, ikuan mo diri is high demand siya, so this may necessitate sa farrowing sows in groups. So, grupo nimo ang iyang pagpanganak. So, most feeder to finish na ta. Most feeder to finish operations purchase 30 to 60 pound feeder pigs and feed them to market weight. So, existing facilities are often sufficient for this system. This system has a low overhead, low labor need, and does not require long-term commitment. A grain farmer can utilize homegrown feeds to finish pigs without needing to handle breeding stock with a feeder-to-finish business. The operation may also profit from the manure fertilizer value, and the supply, health, and quality of purchased feeder pigs are all major concerns. So, to avoid potential herd health issues, all feeder pigs should ideally come from the same farm. So, ang feeder to finish pigs, kumbaga, imo nang nakuha dito. So, from bactin, ikaw na magpadako. It's, dili na ka magkinahanglag anay. So, gipalit kag bactin, then, ikaw na magpadako taman sa, imo na siyang i-produce. O, feeder to finish. Feeding. So, feeding. Feed is the most expensive part of any swine farming operation. Feed accounts for 75% of a farrow to finish operation total expense. So compared to 50% for farrow to feeder operations and 65% for feeder to finish operations, Table 1 shows several sample swine diets. However, they will vary depending on your management approach, feed quality, and animal conditions. Table 2 shows an overview of production inputs and manure output for various types of swine enterprises. Then feed expenses can be reduced by growing your own grain, purchasing extra ingredients in bulk, and utilizing your own grinder and mixer, or in some cases, contracting the labor done. So large volumes of feed ingredients, on the other hand, require suitable storage and one of the most important factors to consider when starting swine operation is how to feed pigs. So, animals in a farrowing, gestation, and nursery units should be fed by hand, while those in the growing finishing units could be fed by mechanical augers. So, um, kuan siya no, laborious ang ato ang pag-feed sa ato ang mga baboy. Kay makagamit lang ka og mga makina during na sa kuan, if ever na growing to finishing ng atong mga baboy, dili ta makagamit og mga machines when ang atong baboy is naa sa farrowing, gestation, and nursery nga kuan pa units. Kailangan good is manually or by hand ang ato ang paghatag sa feeds nila. Table 1 example, swine diets for various stages or phases of swine productions. Item, pounds per phase or sow, corn, natay corn, soybean meal, oats, minerals, then sa nursery or starter nato, naggasto sila og 1,400. Then sa soybean meal, sa nursery nga starter, nasa 550. Then sa oats, none. Then sa minerals, 50. So, gatotal sa ato ang kuan nila sa diet is 2,000. 2,000 ang total sa nursery. Then, sa grower, kakinanglag corn nga 1,500. Then, soybean meal 450. Then, minerals 50, a total of 2,000. And finisher, 1,600 ang corn, 1,600. Then, sa soybean meal, na 350. Then, sa oats, wala. Then, sa minerals, 50, a total of 2,000. Then, during the gestation, nag-produce og naghatagtag, ang diet is 1,2 nga corn, then soybean meal 250, then oats 500, then 60 minerals. Then lactation, 1,500 nga corn, then 450 nga soybean meal. So, sa gestation, ghatag sila 500, maybe to produce a colostrum or milk for the para sa ato ang mga bactin. Munang gihatagan tingali og oats nga 500. Table 2, expected weekly feed, labor, water, and manure management requirements for different types of swine enterprises. So, the item, feed, pounds per week, then feed, dollar per week. Labor, hour per week, then wala dito. So, expected weekly feed, labor, water, and manure management requirements for different types of swine enterprises. So, item, feed, pounds per week, feed, price per week, labor, hour per week, water, gallons per week, and manure output, cubic feet per week, then manure output, gallons per week. So, farrow to finish, na 20 sows. Ang feed is 5,800 pounds kada week. Then, naapoy 385 $385 per week ang magasto. Then, labor, 16 hours per week. Then, water, gallons per week, 2,100 gallons per week. Then, manure output, cubic feet, 370 cubic feet per week. Then, manure output, a total of 2,000 gallons per week. Farrow to feeder, 20 sows. So, ang feed is 1,200 pounds per week. Then, feed, ang magasto is $120 per week. Then, labor, 11 hours per week. Then, gallons, 700 gallons per week. Then manure output 100 cubic feet per week. Then manure output gallons per week, a total of 725 gallons per week. Then feeder to finish or 100 hogs. So 4,500 pounds per week. Feed $265 per week. And labor 5 hours per week. Then 1,400 gallons of water per week. Then 160 cubic feet per week of manure output. Then 1,200 manure output per gallons per week. So feed cost can vary tremendously depending in local and national grain markets. So magdepend yun na ang ato ang mga pagkaon sa atong mga baboy sa kung asa kadapit nagtukod sa imong business. Og tagpila po dira ang mga grains and feeds. So table 3, water requirements for swine by size of animals. Item intake quarts per day per head. So 12 to 30 pound, nagkuhan siya og 1 quarts per day per head. Dayon 30 to 75 pound, 2. And then 75 to 100 pound, 5. Then 100 to 240 pound is 6. Then sow and boar, 8. Then lactating sow, 10. Watering. In swine production, the quality of the water source is critical health factor. Water from a city or a well is recommended because of surface impurity that can cause health concerns. Spring water should be utilized with caution. Pond water should be avoided at all costs. Getting water to the pigs is usually straightforward. To avoid winter freezing, water lines leading into the barn should be covered or well insulated. Automatic nipple waterers work, but when the flow rates are set correctly, waterers in the form of bowls are acceptable, although they are difficult to clean and frequently result in water waste. Keep in mind that all of the water you put into the structure will have to be taken out as waste at some point. Table 3 shows the water requirements for pigs. Manure management. So, most part-time producers underestimate how much work waste management entails. Before introducing any number of pigs onto your property, you must carefully consider your neighbors when dealing manure and make sure your operations follow local, state, and federal rules and requirements. Table 2 shows the estimated quantities of manure from each of the 3 production strategies. Bedding. The amount of bedding required will vary depending on the facility. In cold, drafty barn, using straw instead of hay will reduce the need for an intricate ventilation system, but it will require more labor. Shavings can be used. Although they are expensive, sawdust should be avoided due to the risk of swine tuberculosis transmission. Health. Herd health is often not a problem for most part-time swine growers. The following are some crucial factors of herd health. Purchasing disease-free breeding stock or feeder pigs from a reputable provider. So, para para ma-ensure na to nga to ang swine nga to ang napalit or ang atong buhion is disease-free. Dato dapat ka mapalit sa mga reputable providers kung solid na ng mga producer. Then keeping the facilities clean and ensuring that there is enough ventilation. Then putting in place a herd program in conjunction with a veterinarian to limit the danger of disease transfer and avoid visiting neighboring swine farms. A herd health plan will often contain precautions for minimizing the danger of new disease being transferred by new herd members or visitors. keeping a clean environment, parasite treatment or prevention, then preventing and managing disease of the respiratory, reproductive, and digestive systems. Most herd health problems can be avoided if these principles are followed, and they should only demand a little time and financial effort. Production of pastured pork. Small scale hog producers have become increasingly interested in using pasture as feed source in recent years. Hogs can use grass, although not as well as ruminants can. Fiber digestibility improves as the hog ages. According to research, ideally pasture should be used when it's still young. So when the energy content is maximum and the fiber content is lowest. Using grass for hogs has both advantages and disadvantages. The advantages is outdoor pasture-based production systems open up the possibility of finding a niche market. Then the exertion and exercise that comes with foraging can be beneficial to hogs. Advantages. That is the advantages. Advantages. While ang disadvantages, soil erosion can be caused by excessive rooting behavior. Hogs are capable of escaping from pastures. One of the causes of the growing feral hog problem is many parts of the United States has been identified as hogs escaping from farms. On poorly managed pasture systems, internal parasite problems can be severe, while grazing light-skinned hogs can be sunburned. To be effective in pasture management, you'll need a lot of time and dedication. So, ang pastoral way of having a swine production ay advantage and disadvantages. Pasture feeding hogs. You must be committed to managing the pasture plants and grazing if you decide to use pasture on your property. Perennial or annual plants can be used to create pastures. A perennial pasture is an investment that pays off over time. Perennial pasture must be protected from root damage in order to preserve their long-term output. Each year, annual pastures will need to be replenished. Tillage can be used to smooth out fields and prevent bacterial and parasite contamination in addition to establishing annuals. The cost of re-establishment adds a significant amount to the cost of using pasture. Species of perennial pasture plants. Alfalfa, red clover, ladino white clover, alsike clover, and bird's foot trefoil are perennial legumes that were once frequently utilized for hog raising. Orchard grass, Kentucky bluegrass, moot brome grass, timothy, and perennial ryegrass are examples of common perennial grass species that can be utilized for pasture. For further information on pasture upkeep, consult the Penn State Agronomy Guide. So, rates of stocking. Pasture plant species that grow annually: rapeseed, oats, wet barley, rice, triticale, Sudan grass, annual ryegrass, crimson clover, and soybean are all common annual plant species that can be utilized for hogs. Once upon a time, field corn was extensively employed as hog down crop. Allowing the corn to grow and produce an ear of grain was part of the process. During the fall months, hogs were turned into the field to harvest the standing corn. Rates of stocking. Stocking rates are mostly determined by soil types, grazing plant species, and meteorological conditions. Producers can typically stock 4 to 5 gestating sows per acre and 10 to 12 growing hogs per acre. While on pasture, sows require 2 to 3 pounds of complete feed each day. While grazing, growing hogs should have access to complete feed at all times. A complete feed is made up of maize and soybean meal and is balanced to meet the nutritional requirements of the hogs being fed. It can be utilized as primary source of nutrition. Having a well-balanced ration on hand will also help to reduce rotting. Regulations on the environment. The Pennsylvania Clean Streams Law governs all agricultural operations in the state, including small-scale and part-time farming operations. The Nutrient Management Act is a specific aspect of this law. If you plan to raise pigs on your farm, parts of the act will apply to your operation. Every enterprise has the potential to pollute surface water or groundwater because of this. You should check with your local soil and water conservation district to see whether any rules apply to your business. A manure management plan, which is simplified version of a nutrient management plan, is needed for all Pennsylvania livestock enterprises that generate manure. Risk management. For your organization, you may want to investigate a variety of risk management measures. First and foremost, your facility and equipment should be insured. You can do this by speaking with cold livestock gross margin swine to cover the income from your swine operation. LGM swine protects you from losing your gross margin, market value of livestock minus fed cost, farrow to finish, feeder to finish, and separate early weaned. Farms can all benefit from the LGM swine strategy. LGM swine is marketed on a monthly basis, with each insurance period lasting 6 months and overlapping with subsequent periods. Coverage begins a month after you purchase an insurance. Therefore, only the last 5 months of the period are covered. The insurance policy is perpetual and automatically renews. With this coverage, you can set a deductible. If your company is organized as C or S corporation, the relevant information for crop insurance purposes can be submitted to a schedule. After that, you might call a crop insurance agent to insure your operation income. See Agricultural Business Insurance for further information, and contact a crop insurance agent, or visit the Vicinity Crop Insurance Education page for more information about crop insurance. Initial requirements for resources. Farrow to finish na ay 10 acres of land, 25 hours times sow by sows, then 500 hours of labor per year, 350 by 20 bred glits, or $7,000 in capital, livestock per head, existing buildings, equipments, and fencing, $20,000 to $25,000 in capital. Farrow to feeder, 5 acres of land, 25 hours by 20 sows, 500 hours of labor per year, capital 350 by 20 bred glits, $7,000 in livestock per head, existing buildings, equipment, and fencing, $15,000 to $20,000 in capital. Feeder to finish, 10 acres of land, 0.5 hours per pig, by times 30 pigs equals 15 hours of labor. Livestock per pig, 56.25 times 10 pigs equals $562.50 in capital. $10,000 to $12,000 for existing buildings, equipment, and fencing. Sample budgets. The sample budgets in this paper outline swine production expenses and returns. 3 sample budgets that describe the costs and returns to farrow to finish, to feeder, and farrow to finish operations are included in this article. This budget should assist you in ensuring that all costs and receipts are included in your calculations, because costs and returns are diverse and unpredictable. They can be difficult to anticipate when preparing a budget. Consider these budgets a rough estimate and alter accordingly using the Your Estimate column to suit your individual production conditions. Then budgeting for agricultural decision making has more information on using livestock management. So references: KML, Mikesell, or Harper J. June 2005, swine production retrieved from Penn State Extension. And always do your best. Then what you plant now, you will harvest later. Then thank you, farmers. Thank you for listening about my report.